Welcome to the Darkest Timeline with Ken Jung, Joel McHale,
don't screw this part up.
And Whoopi Goldberg is in on the call. This is unprecedented here for the podcast. We put her right in because she is
I am the darkest as it happens right now.
We can't say that.
You are the most important guest. You are the most important person. And I got the call time wrong. True story. This is just what happened right now. I talked to Whoopi's company, and this is a sign right now that we have no studio and that we're all producing it ourselves. This is how unprofessional we were. I literally was like, let's meet at this certain time at 1 p.m.
And Whoopi, by the way, he thought your company was 1-800-DENTIST.
No, okay.
So I was like, I don't think that's it.
All
right. But go ahead, Ken.
The numbers were very similar in my defense. And so it said, okay, 1 p.m. And I was like, I actually got my hair is wet. I got my jog in early on my treadmill, on my Life Fitness treadmill. Thank you, fitness in the pandemic.
You say it so defensively, as if all that exercise has never shown any evidence.
Joe always says I'm out of shape and I don't exercise. I actually run every day to the point of soreness and debilitating pain. That's how.
Where are you running? You just running in one spot. It's not like you're running a long distance where you got a reason to get paid. You just basically in one spot feeling bad. That's okay.
He has
Joel's hair. I talk about Joel's hair right now because I feel that Joel thought it was 1 o'clock Pacific time, and he was still in bed. And then y'all called him and woke him up. Because he has bedhead.
Oh yeah.
He has fake. He's using.
I feel like
fake
it's pretty good.
Bedhead. I feel like that's just wrong, Joel.
How dare you? I got up at 9:30, and then the text started coming in.
What? 9:30 your time. It was 9:30 a long time ago for me.
It was 9:30 Greenwich Mean Time. I think.
I see. Not Goldberg time.
I wish I could blame this. I wish I could blame this on Joel. And usually I blame a lot of things on Joel, like being late, technology, my career. I blame a lot of things on Joel. But now in this case, I have to 100% own this because I do distinctly remember in an email saying we're cool for 1 p.m. and I reached out to Whoopi's team and I got up at 8:30 this morning. I was just okay. I'm gonna get all dolled up and I might wear a tux, Giorgio Armani after I do my Life Fitness. I might do these things just to look good for Whoopi.
Would you have showered?
And I did. I got out of the shower and
in the tux.
And in the tux, because it's waterproof. Giorgio Armani has a waterproof tux. Look it up. I'm not lying. And then I got out, and then literally I got phone calls and texts going, where are you? Whoopi's ready. And I literally said, like Home Alone, like and then I put on my Gap shirt and my camouflage shorts, and then I come running down and I text Joel. I say, my fault. I am so sorry. I will just I got to talk to Whoopi right now, and we can just own it, and everyone will have a laugh, ha 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 ha, and then I said, we will do this, and I said, 1,000% my fault. And Joel was like, no worries. And Joel was laughing, mocking me on the phone. And here we are. And I just want to apologize for being so unprofessional and being so late. This is a first,
This is, it didn't occur to me either. I just assumed 1 o'clock meant 1 o'clock where I was.
You should. You should, because
so we set it up for after the gig, and it never, and my kid who lives in LA always says, remember, when I say 1 o'clock, I mean my time, Ma. And I'm like, okay. And this time I didn't think about my kid. I just thought, okay, this must be about my time. And so, but here we are. It's all our times. Anytime is our time, isn't it really?
Especially in a pandemic, anytime, it's 1 o'clock everywhere right now.
That's right. Somewhere it's 1 o'clock.
Somewhere it's 1 o'clock.
You are wearing pants?
I am wearing short pants, and I am wearing these camouflage shorts that my wife just got me, and I'm kind of loving it right now. And
you're loving the camouflage?
I am.
I'm
kind of loving
into your couch.
I am blending into my couch. It's just lovely. It's just I'm not a short pants guy, and I'm like becoming that person. I just walk around short pants everywhere. I'm kind of loving it right now. And I see
Joel. This late to like surgery or anything when you were a doctor, or did you get that ever wrong?
I got kicked out of medicine simply because I couldn't read time zones, and that was really my downfall. I won't lie to you right now.
Always wore short pants, I heard.
I wore short pants, and I would miss my appointments. Doctor, you're 1 o'clock. I said, I know, it's 10 a.m. It's 1 o'clock Eastern. I said, okay, I'm fired. So I said, I'll just be famous. I said, I might as well just, okay.
Then he would spin around and walk out, and he was showing so much leg with those short shorts that he would just do that and then touch it, and he goes, "It's too hot for this hospital. It's too hot for Kaiser Permanente." He'd stroll out.
And there was a serious
too, Joel.
What?
I say, are you wearing shorts, Joel?
Okay, all right, all right.
That
will edit. That's a hard cut. We have to edit that out. I'm really, honestly, that's objectionable content. Okay. All right, you would never do that on The View, Joel. How dare you? Why would you do that? Why would you do this in front of Whoopi Goldberg?
I did that on The Talk once, but not on The View. Yeah, it's not the same.
Well, we are honored to have you, Whoopi, because you are a legend. You are, just to even describe your accomplishments and what you've done would not do you justice, because you are just simply a class by yourself, and we're just honored that you would even agree to talk to us. And I just want to, right off the bat, I want to thank you. A couple of years ago, when I guested on The View, you actually told me in commercial break you said, I want to push you for hosting the Oscars, and you actually reached out to the Academy to the point where my publicist called me and did Whoopi Goldberg just reach out to the Academy to pitch you to host the Oscars? And I was so moved by it, and I think I later went on Colbert, or I saw you on Colbert as well, and saying, we got to get Ken on the Oscars, and I was just so honored that you would even think of me for that, and you really just to have that kind of love from you, it's forever etched in my memory.
You make me laugh. I feel the same way about Joel. This is just me talking to y'all. Yeah. Y'all make me laugh, and there's not a lot of people who do. And I feel like if you're gonna have the Oscars, you might as well have somebody who's gonna make you laugh. Somebody who's gonna take you to show you, because this idea of people just coming out and talking and looking stupid, I don't know. They just is like, here, we're doing this and look. And it's just like, no, you need somebody to walk you through and say, those two deer froze in the headlights, and what they meant to say was this. Somebody has to, and so, they're trying lots of stuff. And of course, this year, who knows what's going to happen. But I just thought you were a lot more interesting a choice. And also, the Academy sometimes has a reputation of not talking to folks of color. And I don't know if you know this, but you are a man of color. I know it's shocking. But I felt
MOC.
If you're going to talk about folks of color, then I didn't see why they wouldn't talk to you. But I just think I think you both are wonderful. And that's why I'm here, because, Joel makes me laugh. I've told him that before. You make me laugh. And so the idea that you even wanted to say, come hang with us, seemed like a good idea at the time. And so here we are.
Notice she said at the time. So because we lost our track of time. That's the problem.
Well, Whoopi, a couple of years ago, she pushed me to host the People's Choice Awards, and I got the gig. Oh, wait a minute. No one needs to push anybody to get that gig. They hand that out at the bus stop.
I did that gig at one point too.
Yeah, I was working on CBS, so they said, you better do it. That's how that one works. It's a little different than the Oscars.
Yeah.
What was it like? What was it like the first time you hosted the Oscars, Whoopi? What was that feeling?
it was pretty great because, you know, I had my two big brothers with me. I had Billy and Robin. So they'd be calling each other and then calling me. So they say, come take the phone call. It's like, hello, it's, you okay? You okay? Yeah, I'm good. You're doing great, sis. You're doing great. You know, so I had them carrying me through this kind of wonderful gig that I really had a good time doing.
Were you nervous at all at the top?
Huh?
Were you nervous?
Yes. Because I knew that no matter what, somebody was not going to be happy. You know, somebody, like, well, why? You know, why her? It could have, you know, you could have gotten so and so. Name somebody, you know. And then it was, well, she's taken too long. It's too long. The show she made the show too long. It's like, oh, okay. And all of that happened, but I didn't care because I had so much fun that it negated everything. So I was lucky. I was lucky because I had both those guys championing me.
And then you hosted it 2 more times after that?
I think so. I think I did it 4 times. Damn,
that's good.
Yeah.
That's a good problem to be like, it was 3 or 4 times. I don't even keep
you know. It's a lovely point in one's career to say, yes, I don't remember how many, really. It was so marvelous. I had such a marvelous time. I had a marvelous time.
It must have been so special that first time performing, you know, not only with icons, but, you know, 2 of your closest friends, you know, because growing up watching Comic Relief, you know, you 3 are iconic and etched in my head of, you know, just comedy. This is, if you looked up comedy in a dictionary, it would be you 3. And to me, it's such an important part of my childhood and why I wanted to get into comedy, and to see you 3 together, 3 different styles of comedy, 3 different points of view coalescing into this beautiful kind of tapestry of pop culture and comedy. And it really does kind of resonate with me where, you know, in my own small line of history, just to, you know, work with friends. To work with friends and to work with friends and to be on shows like Community and work with Joel. It's the same subconsciously to work with your friends. It's so I can't even describe it. It's just better. It's just better than making it by myself. Yeah. It's
when you work with friends, you can be annoyed with them. They can be annoyed with you, but it's not personal. You're just doing what you do as friends. And so, you know, they know you, you know them, and, you know, they can say, you know, you really sucked. You should probably do that one more time. It's just like, oh, thank you.
It's real talk. It's like it's like Jordan and Pippen. It's like the old Chicago Bulls. You know, I've been on The Last Dance has been on my brain because I just rewatched it last week, and I was thinking of you because, you know, at some point in the documentary they go of like what keeps Michael Jordan motivated after he's accomplished so much, and I immediately thought about you, and like, you have done everything. You know, you're an EGOT, and you have done, you know, in terms of there is literally nothing
so is Ken, but it stands for something else.
Well, no, I'm a
you can see his collection of awards right behind there.
I am an R- EGOT. I'm a Razzie minus an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. So I'm a Razzie minus. I think I'm just a nominee. So
I just want to let you know I have several Razzies.
It's funny. Joel and I talked about that on the very first podcast because we were both when we first got nominated for Razzies, we actually talked to each other. What does this mean? And then Joel, of all people, because Joel always picks on me. And when I had a Razzie nomination, I said, "Man, what does this mean? I'm kind of bummed out." And Joel goes, "That means you're famous." Like, Joel was like, of all people, like spelled it out. I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, congrats.
Joel actually said congrats. So
you know, it's like the old days when Mr. What was his name? The guy that used to talk about people's clothing used to talk about you. Mr.
Oh, right. In New York.
His name, yeah.
Yes.
Every Oscars he would say, "Oh,
Richard
this one."
Nixon.
No, not Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was not a fashion critic for E.
No,
he was not.
Not in the 70s.
Right. No, it was way back. He was super famous.
Yes. And I can't think of his name, but it's like that. He says, you looked terrible, you dressed terrible, and yet you knew that the fact that he was even talking about you meant that you had arrived. Right. So just, it's one of those things where you go, oh, okay. It's like Mad Magazine. Man, when they put me in Mad Magazine, I called everybody I knew. I called everybody I knew. I bought lots and lots and lots of copies. I sent it to everybody because Mad Magazine, Spy versus Spy, and then Whoopi. What's better than that?
Yeah.
I showed up at the right time, I feel like. Because I got to play with Richard Pryor. I got to know all the comics that I grew up loving. And just sitting and listening, and just kind of going, oh, okay, are you going to talk about stuff? Oh, my God! And you know that you're fanning out, but you can't help it.
Yeah.
And you're out. You're just out and you're doing your thing. And so, we're lucky. We are very lucky to have the lives that we have.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't get to where we got to. And so every day I thank my lucky stars, because if I listen to everybody, this should never have happened to me.
Absolutely.
And especially if you look at, obviously many career, but when you look at the way you started with, you just basically invented it. You made that. The first show was the Spook Show, right? It was just you.
Yeah.
And you just wrote a show and started doing it. That's like Hamilton level of, I'm just going to write myself into history right now.
Well, because nobody else would hire me. I had to write the Spook Show because it started when I was in San Diego trying to get hired by the Old Globe. And, they were like, no. You want to play Juliet? No. It's like, you want to stand over here? You could be over here if you want to be on stage, but you're not going to say anything.
And you were laying bricks at the time?
Yeah, I laid bricks and guys too. But that was a thing that people never really talked about. And I worked on a lot of dead people because I worked in the morgue. Because the hours were good because I had a little kid. So I had to be around in the daytime. So, you take the jobs you could take. And in those days, I was on welfare. So you couldn't really have a job because they would take whatever, if you made $30, they took that $30 out of the check. And then, you didn't
Seems like a good system. Seems like a very good system.
Insane. But I got to say, I was grateful for it because it got me through. And so, when my career started, I paid back all the money I ever got from the system. I still have my medical cards downstairs. They're in a frame. Oh. So I always remember that, I didn't do this by myself. I had help. I had help from the government. They didn't know they were helping me, but they were, But it's, so I did everything I needed to do to try to make people see that I was a pretty good performer and not just somebody who was trying to get in, that I actually had the chops to do it. But you look at me and people go, oh. And then once I started to do and perform and write stuff, people went, oh, you got a weird brain. And I moved to San Francisco and they were like, you got a really weird brain. And it went...
And that was in San Francisco.
Tell stories, yeah. And that's saying everything,
And did you meet Robin in San Diego?
Yes, I did.
At the Comedy Store?
At the Comedy Store, yeah.
Wow. I didn't even realize there was a Comedy Store in San Diego.
Yes. He used to come down. They had a weekly show where you could just go and do your chops, and he would come down and do his show because he was the biggest thing on the planet, but he always came down to hone everything he was doing. And so when I got famous and they put everybody together for comic relief, he was like, "Are you?" And I was like, "Uh-huh." He said, I said, "Yeah, we did." And, yeah, that was me,
Wow.
And so I knew Robin for a good 4 or 5 years before I became Whoopi Goldberg, because we used to improv together, which was lovely.
Oh my gosh. Wait, so then you you moved to San Francisco and you were developing the one-person show.
Well, I didn't know I was, but I always knew that I had characters in my head because they were always talking. So suddenly, if somebody did something to me in my head, she would appear or he would appear as this new person. So I just start talking as them. And so if somebody was annoying me, I'd talk to them as them.
Ken does that to me all the time.
Ken does that to me all the time.
See, that's I go back to this because as Ken already said, and I know you when you hear like the word legend, it takes the building of the legend, and people take for granted because Whoopi, obviously you're on TV every day and you have become part of Americana, right? You're part of the fabric of the country now forever. But I think people don't understand that or get it that you're like somebody pissed you off or was a jerk, and then you began using their voice and when like maybe this is a show, and then that's what you did.
Yes. Well, because I knew there were two things I understood as a young performer. A, nobody I ever auditioned for ever knew the piece of material I was doing, even if it was a known piece of material. They didn't know the material. I learned to do for them. So that was the first clue. The second clue was I knew how to do lots of voices and physicalize a lot of stuff. So I could go in and say, I'm getting ready to do, my favorite part of the Iceberg Opera that was done in, Beijing in, 1980. And so I just would like to do that. And they didn't know what I was talking about, but they were happy to see it. And they hadn't seen anything like what I was doing because I was bullshitting. Ooh, sorry.
No, this is a podcast, so it's all good.
Don't worry.
So I knew that I could try a lot of different stuff and no one could say that's not how that goes. So the improv was easy for me because I could improvise what I was doing and not have to worry about it. So that's how all that happened. And I ended up in Europe at one point and went to, I was in Amsterdam and went to the Anne Frank house, which just took my breath away because I'd read about Anne Frank and knowing all the history that I knew, to be in that space in Amsterdam, first of all, to be in Amsterdam at all, where you could buy hash for like nothing and nobody was mad, was the first shock. The second shock, it's true. I mean, they were like, no, you can buy it here. It's like, really? I bought a whole bunch. And then they said, well, you can't take it with you. So I had to give all the hash I bought away. But that's a whole other story. But I went into the Anne Frank house and I was so knocked out by everything I saw that I knew somehow I wanted to tell people. And I knew that nobody really wants to hear your stories about your adventures in different places. But I felt like if I could put it in the voice of somebody that you would not ever connect that to, people might actually hear what I was feeling. And so I put it in the voice of one of my favorite characters, which is a junkie called Fontaine. And because Fontaine is an educated guy, he is someone who he's very erudite, but he's a dope fiend, So he is able to have lots of different kinds of conversation and still maintain, his crutch. So I felt if I put it in his voice, people would listen, and they did. And so people said, oh my God, I didn't know that was in there. You know, because I talk about the fact that a wonderful actress called Shelley Winters gave Anne Frank House her Oscar, you know, because she played Mrs. Van Dam in the movie. So I incorporated that and incorporated the love that she had for actors and performers, because there were all these pictures in the room. So I just was I wanted to be able to say, you know, that this was a girl who you would think would have nothing really good to say about the world. And, you know, what she ended up saying basically is, you know, in spite of everything, I still think there's good in people. And that, for me, has colored my whole life. It has colored everything I think about, because I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of really awful stuff in the world, but there are fundamentally great people. And I never want to forget that. So it's all, you know, it's all sort of wrapped up in this need I had to try to bring some light, you know, that it's, yeah, stuff is bad. It's always bad. There's always something bad going on, but there is always something great somewhere happening, and somebody has to say it. So that's how all that other stuff got written, you know, is me just trying to find ways to communicate. Because I'm left to my own devices, I would never, you know, I'm the perfect person to be sheltering in place. If I never had to see anybody else, I would be fine. I could do this all day. I could. I never had to go to the supermarket or go into, yeah, I think so. This is great, but it's a bad habit of mine, because I hide out and then I don't see anybody. So I have, you know, you gotta kind of balance it out with seeing people in your mask or, you know, in your whole new thing, and, you know, find ways to kick it by yourself as well.
So wait, no. So when you said you would go audition for, like, I don't know, Portia or Lady Macbeth or something, you'd be like, I'm going to do this thing. Would you do something? Are you saying that you did something completely different, or they didn't know it?
Yeah, I would do things, and they'd look at me like I was crazy. So I then would start doing new stuff that I was making up in the voice of. And God. You know, they would be so surprised. They weren't paying any attention to the fact that Shakespeare never wrote a word I said. I never got hired, but they were always entertained. You know,
you did your job. You entertained them.
There I did.
And then, as you stitched together the show, you moved it to New York.
I got an invitation saying from a place called Dance Theater Workshop. A fellow called David White wrote me.
And this was before Uta Hagen or after Uta Hagen or during?
Uda's in New York.
Okay.
That's all at youth, really.
Okay.
But David had a place called, as I said, DTW, where lots of folks came through, a lot of dance companies, and he wanted to expand the space. So he started doing all of these sort of one-person shows that didn't cost a lot of money, but could be interesting for folks. And so I got this letter, literally in the mail, from this man who said, you know, I have this place in Chelsea. I know you grew up here, and I would love to invite you to come do I think it was a 2-week stay with them and perform my shows. I'm like, okay, I can go home. You're going to pay for me to go? Okay. So he sent me to I came home. I was like, Mom, back. And she was like, oh, well, that's nice. We can hang out and do stuff. And I said, well, I'm going to do all of these shows. She said, do you want company? I said, yeah, come on, let's go. So my mom and I would be backstage. She would glide in and say, do you want to know who's sitting outside? Do you want to know who's sitting out there? I said, no, don't tell me.
Right.
Okay, no, don't tell me. She said, okay, you know.
But when you get this 2-week residency, had the buzz for the show?
No, nothing.
It was
nothing. Just I came, I put up my posters like I did everywhere else. And when I tell you night one was my mom and 3 friends and maybe a couple of people on the subscription. And I was so devastated because I thought I've disappointed you guys. No one is coming to see this show. What was I thinking? Why have I done this? This is ridiculous. Oh my God. So on the 4th day, I decided to say to David, listen, I'll give you your money back. I just feel really bad taking all of this because nobody's here. Nobody's coming. And he said, well, I want you to hold off a little. Wait to see how it goes. It's not hurting anybody, you know. I say, I know, but I just feel bad, you know, because you should have some people who could bring people in. 2 days later, my mother says to me, I think you should look at this. What is the matter? She said, well, I just want you to see somebody saw the show. And I was like, somebody saw the show? She said, yeah, and they wrote about it. And his name was Mel Gussow. And when I tell you that I could not, if he had been my boyfriend, you could not have gotten a better review than he wrote for me. Wow. And he was one of the 6 people who was in the audience on any given night. Wow. And I believe it was in the New York Times. The New York Times.
Wow.
Yeah. And the next thing I knew, you couldn't get a ticket to that show. You couldn't get a ticket to that show. Folks were showing up. Actors, Bette Midler, that's the first time I met Bette. She came to see my show. Just a wonderful actress who just passed away recently, Barbara Barry, who was in a movie that I loved called One Potato, Two Potato. And I remember when I realized in the midst of doing the show, I'm like, oh my God, it's Barbara Barry. Oh my God. That was what I was doing, you know, just like, oh my God. You know? And so the show was done and I go back and say, Mom, you know who's here? She said, yes, of course I know who's here. And then you'd hear knock, knock, knock. I'd open the door and there was Barbara Barry, or there was Bette Midler, or there was Mike Nichols. And it was like, the whole time, just screaming, internally cool, externally cool as cool could be from Chelsea. Internally dancing and fainting and just being like one of those blow-up dolls that was like this. I mean, it was crazy. And it turns out, he was on the last boat out of Germany as a kid. And the Anne Frank story got him. And he said, I haven't been moved like that because that's kind of the story that she could have had if she had been able to get out, or the story I would have had if I ended up staying. So it was great. And he said, so would you ever consider doing this on Broadway? I said, sure. Yeah. Yes. Oh my God. Of course I would. And then I didn't hear anything else. And then I went home to Berkeley and it was all great. And I was still floating around and my phone rang. And his voice, he said, Ms. Goldberg. And I was like, yes. He said, Mr. Nichols. I was like, hey, what's up? You know, he said, would you like to talk about coming to New York, to Broadway, to doing the show? I was like, oh, you were serious? I thought you were kidding. Yeah, no, you don't want me to come because, you know, I could really be bad for you. You know, you don't want to be saddled with, you know, Me like that? I'm just, and he was like, you're babbling. Yes, because I'm not.
It's pen all the time.
And he said, I want to present you on Broadway. Is it okay if I start looking for theaters? And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And it's Mike Nichols. And I've had and continue to have just kind of a blessed, weird ass career, because I was brought into all of it in the palm of hands of people who love the art. So I came in kind of thinking that everybody loved the art. I forgot about the business aspect of it. I learned about it later on. And I kind of stomped all over the art a little bit, Well,
but not before you became the highest paid female actress in Hollywood for a few years.
No, for 5 minutes. Okay. 5 minutes. Just telling you. And as soon as that 5-minute period was over, I went back to, having to beg for back end. That's the way it is. That's the way the business is. But you know that. It's fun.
I was in Spy Kids 4. But yes. Wait, so then this is like 81, right?
No, this is 85.
85. Right. So you're like 22 or something?
No.
And 21?
I was 30. I was 35. I was 35 when I did Color Purple. So I was probably 33.
So you were 10 years younger than Ken at the time. Okay. That's wait. And I like you're like you said, you're obviously your career is blessed and it's really cool. But I think I always want to reiterate that, like, you put in the fucking work and you worked it out. And then because obviously Spielberg sees you. Right. And he's like, I'm going to put you in 1941. I've got a dinosaur thing coming up. Why don't you try this?
That's where I wanted to go. When they said Steven Spielberg wants to see you, I was counting all the movies I was going to do with her.
Jaws 4, Jaws 5, all the Jawses.
I could be the secretary to, the guy that's running from the big ball. I'm not going to, but I'm just in my mind. I'm seeing all the places that I'm going to be, And then he says, "I'm going to direct Color Purple," and I was like, "Okay, cool." He said, I didn't get to see your show on Broadway, so do you think you could do it here? Because I have a small theater over at Amblin, which was his studio at Warner Brothers. Would you mind coming? And I'll have a couple of people there, so you won't just be me in the audience. So I'll have a couple of people. I should have paid attention when he said that, because Mike did the same thing to me. And I talked about it today on the show. The first time I met Carl Reiner was because Mike Nichols said, "Hey, we've just finished rehearsal. Let's, I'm going to go to lunch. You want to join me?" And I was like, "Sure." He says, it'll be a couple of friends of mine, Steve and Carl and Paul. And I said, "Sure, okay." Because I know people with similar names. And so, what could it be? So we walk on, we're talking and we're laughing and stuff. We walk into this restaurant and two things happen. I see who he's meeting. And then I step out of myself, and once again I go, "Oh my God!" Because it's Carl Reiner, Steve Martin, and Paul Simon. That's who was at his lunch, who he was having lunch with. So it's like, I should have paid attention. And I did the show, and it was really good. And I did they said more. And I had been said, my agent said to me, and my manager said, because I acquired them as, I got a little notoriety. They said, "Now look, you cannot do the piece. You can't do the extra piece. You just can't. I was like, okay. And they was like, promise me you're not going to do the extra piece. I said, okay, I won't do it. Why can't I do it? And they said, because the piece was called Blee Tea, the black E.T. Okay. So you mentioned why they were telling me not to do it. It was about Blee Tea laying in the projects. And he, at the time, people had jerry curls. You remember those jerry curls, and the curls would drip and everything. And so he ends up in the projects with some kids. He can't phone home because the phones don't work. He ends up, selling all kind of stuff, and he becomes like a pimp, and a whole thing, a slew of things happen. And then his people come to get him, and he takes his gun and he shoots them all because he forgot where he came from. And it's a piece about people can assimilate, but we mustn't force them to forget who they are, because bad things happen when people forget who they are. So they said, do not at all. Don't even say that you can do it. So I said, okay, I won't say anything. But then they said, more, do you have any more? And I said, well, I do, but I don't think you want to really see it because I don't want to be disrespectful. And they told me if I did, then I would be in big trouble. And Stephen said, why would you be in big trouble? And then I explained it to him. He said, now I want to see it. I need to see it now. So I did it for him.
And Michael Jackson?
And Michael Jackson and Ashford and Simpson and all the folks that were sitting there. And everybody was kind of taken aback until I explained that, because the end of the piece is, so what we get from all of this is you can't make people change who they are, because if you change who you are, you're not going to recognize your people when they come to help. So Stephen said, that is really wild and different and really smart, and I'm so glad you did it. And I thought to myself, okay, it is out there, but you understood what I was going for, because I had a lot of friends, who come from different countries, and always wanting to try to help people understand, that you can't always expect people to speak perfect English when they've come from somewhere else. They'll get to it. But, they're just trying to assimilate. Let people breathe. Don't turn them into your vision of what you think an American should be. And so that was what Blee Tea was all about, because I thought that was the only way I could explain it to people, explain what I was thinking to people. And so it seemed like a good idea. So I liked it. So I got the job. By the way.
So did your agents go, you see, I told you to do Blee Tea. I said do Blee Tea, and I don't know why you were so hesitant.
They were still really mad at me.
They were what?
They were annoyed with me. And he had to explain to them that he had asked me to do it. That I was trying not to, but that he had asked for it. And they were like, well, but it's like,
you're like, it worked out.
Why are you mad at, look, it could have gone any way. If he didn't want me, he wouldn't have wanted me, whether I told the story or not. If he thought I sucked, But enough about me. Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, this is how this works. Ken grew up in North Carolina. And, big fan.
Yes.
To Duke.
No,
and then he got naked on a movie, and the rest is history. And
no, it seems ever. Gotta say, no. Go ahead. Sorry.
It just you have done everything, and going back to going back to what you have done. What motivates you now? What keeps you present, because when I think of Whoopi Goldberg, I think this is someone who is in the moment, who is present, who is, you have just your choices of bodies of work. Like right after Ghost, I'm a big Star Trek Next Generation fan. And so right after Ghost, you starred in Next Generation, and and
she was Captain Jean-Luc Picard, which was incredible. I think she played Guinan and Jean-Luc. I don't know how you did it. I mean, it was, again, multiple characters. I don't know how you do it.
And then at the same time, I believe you had your own talk show, which I loved, by the way. You had your own. It was like Bob Costas later, where you had your own long form talk show, and you were outstanding, and you're interviewing like my heroes in comedy, and what drove you to do such different types of projects after, and you were still doing your movies. I mean, I don't know how you were doing all this at once. What had interested you into doing either episodic TV, having your own talk show, while still doing your movies? Is it something that you're going with the flow and this just interests me now? You're at that point. Is that what drives you?
Well, that's in part what drives me. But, I wanted to do Star Trek because when LeVar Burton said, that's what I'm doing, I'm getting ready to start Star Trek, I was like, I want to do it. Can I be in it? Can you tell him I want to be in it? And he was like, yeah. And then I didn't hear from them for a year. And then I ran into him again. I said, what happened? He said, I told them they didn't believe me. So I said, give me somebody's phone number so I could call. So I called and left a message for Gene Roddenberry. And I said, my name is Whoopi Goldberg, and I really want to come and talk to you because I'd like to be part of this. And so my agents then followed up because I think he didn't believe that it was me, that I was calling myself. And so they made a meeting for us. And Gene said, why do you want to do this? I said, because when I was a kid, I love sci-fi. I love it. I love horror. I love sci-fi. And it wasn't until Lieutenant Uhura did I realize that there would be Black people in the future, because everything that comes before that, any movies you see, you don't see any Black people in the future. You don't see it. And I said, not only was she in the future, but she's gorgeous and she was wonderful. And you had to talk to her before you talk to anybody. So I just, as a homage, I would like to be that person for little girls like myself who don't know they're like me until they see that I'm there and they go, oh, I like that. I could do her. I could be her. Because I want to continue this idea that we're in the future. And he said, it is not possible that there are no Black people in the future in movies and stuff prior to Star Trek. I said, you want to bet? He said, yeah. And then I got a call a couple of days later. Absolutely, there was nobody. Lieutenant Uhura, Nichelle Nichols, was the first, Wow. And for me, that was a big deal. And having watched Robert Redford and in Twilight Zones when I was a kid, I understand you could be an actor in movies as well as television. To me, there's no difference. You can do both. So when people would say, well, why would you good enough for Robert Redford? It's great for me. It just is. It's good work. You can have a good time. And it's one of the joys of my life that I got to play on the Enterprise for, 6 years. I came and went and it was heaven. Yeah.
But it was, when you say, moving from television to movies and stuff, that was at a time still that people said, you can't do that. You're either, once you get out of TV, now you're in movies, congrats. And if you go back to TV, something's wrong, which is bananas to think about now.
Well,
and I mean, other than some of Ken's choices, which
all right,
don't even understand.
We'll cut this. We'll cut this.
But I remember. I mean, Ken, you remember watching? Same thing where Next Generation. You'd be like, "Hey, well, there's one of the biggest stars in the world, manning the bar at 10 forward," and so it was well, and also obviously it was such a fabulously wonderful, different character, and and I think that Jean-Luc was just in love most of the time, and so. But yeah, it was such a. I mean, as you said, my entire high school schedule was based around reruns of Next Generation because they came on at 11, and I didn't want to have a 7 o'clock class, so I bumped everything to 9, even though I'd be out of school at 3:30, so I could just watch those reruns.
Yep.
Good time, a good time, and the ability to, for good or not so good, feel like I was the person making the decisions, and whether they worked or not worked, they were on me. No one said this is what you should do. So, I've had hit and misses, but this is life. And so if you can stand on your own 2 feet and say, yeah, these were my choices and I kind of had a good time and I'm still having a good time.
Yeah.
It just, you have to make the parade. You have to make your own parade. And I love floats, and I love, people with bands, and in my mind, that's what I live in. I live in a parade, which is of my own making. And life doesn't get much better than that.
No.
God, this is so inspiring. It really is.
And I remember an interview with Nichols, and I'm sure you know her, but where she spoke to Martin Luther King about being on Star Trek, and she was talking about leaving, I think, to join to become more active, and but he was like, no, you got to stay on TV because just like you said,
that's right.
We have to. There has to be Black people in those positions, and in the future, it has to be that way.
And it's just. It was simply the knowledge, because that's all I needed. I just needed to know that there was a future, where other people like me might be okay. Now, I hate to fly, but I knew that if a starship came, I was going. I was going to go. So, it was all good.
And I think you actually shot, this is related to Community, I think we shot on some of the same stages that you guys shot.
That's right, at Paramount, yeah.
Slightly different cultural impact, but, still.
Well, but not really, because I have to tell you, Community is one of those shows that worldwide everybody knows. They know The Office, they know Community, American shows, they know it literally all over the world. And it's kind of great. You have no idea that someone in, Kazakhstan is watching your show and laughing their ass off. And you think, is the joke as funny in Kazakhstan or whatever? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. So, and the reason I can say this is because I've been in a great many of these little tiny weird ass countries, and you turn on begging, hoping to see something that looks familiar, and there y'all are. It's like, oh shit! It's great. It's a great thing. It's a great thing. I'll say it again. We are really lucky. We are really lucky to have that we have.
Yeah, it's so cool that this show that Ken guest starred on a few times.
No, it was a series.
Community.
It was a series, right? It wasn't. It's a series regular. Listen, we're gonna edit.
So
we're gonna
cool.
cut this out. We're gonna cut. We're gonna. Edit.
I'm sorry.
You can only cut so far, though. Ken. You can only cut so far because in 2 years, the in its entirety, this will be played.
Yeah.
I'm just
We're
saying.
going to not stop. This is going to go for 2 years. This is just going to be
constant talking. I mean, okay, because and to your point, but to your point, we are taping this right now, and this is technically a pre-tape. I mean, what is it like 5 days a week to do live television? Just it's at some point you just get, obviously you get used to it and it's some muscle, but when you first started out on The View, every day, I mean, just the cultural impact. Whenever I guest on The View, I get the most texts, from people. Right. It's the most time I get text being on a talk show is just being on The View, and it's intense. And how it started. How did that?
It's only an hour. It's only an hour. We prep from 9 o'clock to 11 to 10:45, and then we're on for an hour. So it has become more taxing because of the environment in which we live. The world has shifted quite a bit. So you're like this a lot, but in reality, my mind works. I can talk to people about stuff. It's an opinion show, so you say what you think, and that's it. And I'm not a journalist. If I was a journalist, it'd be a whole different thing. What I am is somebody who has an opinion, and that's very different. I don't pretend to know anything more, and that's why we can say to people, listen, you can dislike what I say. It doesn't matter. You have 3 other opinions you can choose from. There are 4 people whose opinions you might like better. But, don't email me or text me and say you're going to, run me over with your car because you don't like what I said. Dude, there's more. There's so much more going on in the world that you taking this time to tell me you're going to punch me out because you don't like what I said? Come on. Come here. Let's see who gets to punch in first. Then they made me stop doing things like that. But they said,
stop physically threatening people or returning the threat.
Yeah, stop doing that. And they were very clear. They were like, because people can come out of anywhere, and you just don't want to pull this on you. And I said, okay, I'm sorry. But now, I don't pay much attention to it because it's like, listen, tomorrow you might like what I say. So it's up to you to just figure out your life. This is what I do for a living. They pay me for this. You're writing me for free. Being pissed off. That's kind of dumb.
What is when you're doing a show like The View, where it's 4 or 5 opinions at once, and it's the symphony of coordinating when to go in, when to jump in, when to jump out. I remember I guess I was one of the guest panelists like about 4 years ago, and I sat in on one of your meetings, and it was like you, me, Joy, and I believe to one other person, and I was overwhelmed. I was intimidated because everyone just kind of knew it was like just like a great basketball team of like 5 people. They knew where to pass the ball. They knew when to go for the layup. They knew when to go for the dunk. And I was just kind of, I remember the whole time I was there, I felt kind of flat-footed because I just didn't want to get in the way. That was, I'm sure you get that from guest hosts a lot. Yes. I was sitting there petrified. I was like, don't get in the way. They just don't ruin anything. Just maybe add a joke or go in there, pick your spots. But it's an incredibly hard dance. It became easy because we were all dancing together, and if there was a place where you needed to stand on my feet to dance, and then I could pass you over to Joy, and then you could stand on your own feet. That's just what it is. It's you take care of the people at the table. You take care of the people at the table because it's not easy to talk as yourself. It's not easy to be yourself. It's not easy to say, well, this is what I think about this, whether it's in a joke or out of a joke, because someone is always going to say, well, I didn't like what you said. It was like, but I just said good morning. I didn't say
Screw you, Whoopi.
Yeah.
What's good about it?
What's good about this morning? And by the way, in some areas, it's the afternoon.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Yeah. There you are. That is a microcosm of that show. And so you learn that, not everybody's going to like it, and that's okay. And that this is your job. This is what you do for a living. And so people can get mad as they want, but there's nothing they can do because they're not going to pay you.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's crazy. It's crazy, but it's fun. It's a fun gig, and I'm glad I got it. And, I get to do stuff I like to do, and,
You have a platform. You have an important platform every day, and
it's been since 2007.
It feels like it's been since 1901. I've been doing it for a long time.
When I started the Soup back in 2004, when Ken refused to come on, and but
that one time,
it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing, not in front of Whoopi Goldberg. All right, but let's just look. It's no big deal. Let's not.
No, but when I started to be able to appear on shows, like when they were like, "We would like you as a guest," and that was a whole new world for me. And I got asked to be on The View, and I was at that point such a infant. I didn't know really how to behave on these shows. And I went on a bunch of them, and I have to say, you were so kind to me. No, like you were one of the only people that would like look me in the eye and go, like, you were like, Joel, really glad you're here. And I was just like, that lady just said my name, that lady that's super famous, and she knew who I was, and she was kind to me. And then at the end was like, you were really great. And I was like, even if she's lying, I believe it. And so I want you to know that did not happen on many shows where they just kind of like, get on out.
Right.
Great. Dance a little bit, get out of here. Right. And so you were truly like, I was like, oh, what? And you do not need to be. That's the crazy part. And because you're way more accomplished than a lot of the talk show hosts that I had been interviewed by, but I was just like, you're so kind. And that I will never forget. And I tried to do the same thing when I would have Ken on the show.
Okay.
And,
all right.
But I would try to do the same thing to people that were, coming on and be like, oh, be really cool to them, as cool as Whoopi, and then maybe they'll come back.
Well, you know why? You know why that was? Is because I did this. I would go on shows and people would, they talk to you like that, and you'd have these hosts who would, not talk to you when the camera wasn't running. They'd be talking to somebody else, and it's just like, God damn, don't you see me?
I'm the guest.
Hi. Do you, I'm here. Hello. So I just thought, when people come on, I'm going to be there if they want to talk and say hello. And I'm going to ask them about how you doing? And, what's going on with you? I watch your show. I try to watch everybody's show.
You are amazing about that. Yes. You are absolutely.
There's a lot of stuff I miss. There's a lot of stuff I miss on purpose.
Whoopi, I have tried to watch so much of Ken's stuff.
Okay. All right.
It's very difficult. Very difficult. I get it. I understand.
See how kind I am? I've learned so much, as I just said.
Everybody has their Whoopi Goldberg moment. The first time you meet, like same with me when I was on The View, met you in the dressing rooms, and you were just so kind. I met your family. Your daughter was there at that first time, and I went back to my dressing room, and I just told my manager, I just met Whoopi Goldberg. It was just like you. I just met Whoopi Goldberg, and I met her family. I met her grandchild. It really does to have it's so every time we go back, that warm feeling. It matters. For a guest, it matters. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to go on The View. So every time, I reference that moment, and it set a tone.
Be a fan, baby. Be a fan of the folks that have come to hang out. Be a fan, because it goes a long way. It really goes a long way. If people feel like you at least made the fucking effort. Sorry.
No. Okay, it's totally.
To find out something about them. Say, even if it's something as dopey as, how's your dog? I have a cat. I had a cat, So I'd say, I wonder, why would you get a dog? Why do you have a dog and not a cat? Because people love to talk about their animals. And I like hearing about it. So things that, that connect us, we'll always see each other and wave. And I really mean it when I wave to you, because I asked you about your cat. I asked you about your dog. I asked you about you. And you responded. So I feel like, okay, we connected, and I can keep connecting every time I see it. Now, some people like, is that bitch waving at me again? Oh my God, is she coming over here? Is she coming over?
Here comes that lady with the EGOT waving at me, wondering what's going on with me.
Yeah, when she got old, I'm going to go get a whiskey and sour. Just weird stuff, It's weird.
Do you? I know you say you like being at home and you could do this all day, but do you miss the studio right now in terms of just?
Not at all. Not one eye.
You don't have to take a car ride. You can just walk 20 feet.
Just walk 20 feet.
And I can dress or not. They'll never know.
Oh, I think there will be so many shows that never stop doing this. I think I feel that that's just, people just get so used to it. They're like, well, why would you ever go back to a studio?
Yeah.
What's the point?
Yeah, and with live audiences too, it's a lot of people. Yeah. There's a lot of people there, and they're not going to get a real handle on this thing for at least a couple of years, I think. It's one of those.
New York seems to be, kind of, they're in good shape. New, relatively speaking, right now, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut just seems to be, the Northeast seems to be. Out here in the West, it's.
No, y'all are in trouble. Y'all are having a real. Well, because y'all had all those really, really monumentally small-brained people going, no, we don't have to wear a mask. Why should we wear a mask, man? That's like against my like constitutional. First of all, there's nothing in the Constitution about a mask. Okay. No. The second thing is there is a pandemic, and what that means is you, dumbass, could be spreading it because you don't want to wear a mask. And what about my constitutional? If we talk about your constitution, let's make up my constitutional rights. You don't have the right to give it to me. So you don't have the right to make other people sick. It's like the plague. If we called it the plague and said, bring out your dead. If we did that and just started piling bodies, on wheelbarrows, maybe people would understand that this is serious. And you could conceivably die. You could conceivably die and take a whole bunch of people with you because you're so dumb. You don't realize people are trying to save your life. And doctors are so good, Ken. Doctors, when they're mad as hell at the stupidity that they see, they still will take care of you. Will still take care of you. Now, see, I'm evil. I say, you know what? If I see a whole swath of y'all, you can't come to the hospital. How about that? How about I'm not going to take care of you? How about that? Now, what will that do? Will that keep a mask on your face if you think that if you get sick, no one's going to take care of you because you wouldn't listen? So you don't want to get to that point because doctors do no harm. Do no harm. And I think of all these first responders and people on the front line who are busting their behind to save people and all these dumb folks. And I'm calling y'all dumb. I'm calling you dumb. Because there is no reason not to wear a mask. There's no reason. You said you wanted to go back to work. Now you can't. because now it's everywhere. It's up in everywhere. I mean, when they show the map, it's just like, damn. This is like, it's damn. And Europe's like, oh, hell no, you're not coming over here.
Ever.
And New York and New Jersey and Connecticut is like, listen, y'all, everybody over there, you can't come over here.
Yeah.
You have to stay you have to stay somewhere before we're gonna let you out the door.
Yeah. It's just so multifactorial. Like, and Joel and I, we started this podcast simply, so we could really, talk and discuss and vent about the pandemic. And it boils down to really just not forgetting what we're in right now, no matter how because California was one of the first states to institute shelter in place, stay at home. And so there is that, and by Memorial Day, there was that feeling, okay, it looks like and the numbers were relatively favorable, and they wanted to, by Memorial Day, people, just kind of, and I see it. I almost, even as a doctor, I almost empathize with the logic of the patient going, okay, we'll get together, socially distance, of course, we'll get together. This is pretty good. You know what? I don't need a mask to drink my beer, and then, I probably should just take that mask off now. I can't hear you. Can you talk closer? It gets stepwise and stepwise. And what are they talking about? We're having fun. I'm drunk and I don't know any of the consequences. So it's kind of like you forget about it, especially in a bar setting, and it really it's just medically speaking, you just the incentive to wear a mask becomes less and less, and then obviously it becomes politicized and weaponized, and then that doesn't help. But right now we're at a point where, I was watching on CNN, all the states that were going above 50% in terms of new cases daily, the whole country was like over two thirds was over 50%, and it was just my jaw's dropping. And then when Dr. Fauci is saying, you could easily have 100,000, cases daily very soon, daily. Yeah. And then I saw a public health official or a physician saying, these are just cases that are being recorded. There may be a world right now where we have undocumented over 100,000 cases daily. It's just not everybody has access to the testing. So we might already be there and not know it. So it really is, it's exactly what you're saying is wear a mask. Yep. We have to wear that mask. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I could, and Whoopi, you almost, have a tiny keyboard next to you to play cool tunes, but
really cool. It's playing a doorbell song. It's awesome.
Yes, it is.
But because you almost died last year from pneumonia.
That's right. I'm so glad you're recovered.
Thank God.
Yes,
and so, dear, it was not. It was not just you got a little sick and went to the hospital and we're fine.
No, they drain my lungs, all kinds of crazy stuff. Pneumonia is no joke. And I think some form of this is what I feel like I had some form of this. I feel like this has been around much longer than they're saying. And it just has gotten progressively worse because last year's pneumonias really took a lot of people off the planet, killed a lot of people last year. And so I'm just happy that I wasn't one of them. But, it's just by luck. So you got to really pay attention. So now I'm like, nah, I'm not going outside if I don't have to.
Right.
No.
I'm not going to do it because I never want to be in a hospital bed again. I never want to be in a hospital bed again. I never want people waking me up in the middle of the night to take my temperature through my butt. I don't like that.
Especially pneumonia when your breathing is compromised, and then if you have to go to the ICU and be monitored to see see if you have to be put on a ventilator.
Yeah.
And that's, it's not only incredibly taxing and emotionally draining for the patient first and foremost and the family, then you multiply that, times the over 200,000, fatalities that we have right now. That's what we're worried about globally is bed utilization. If the ICUs are being compromised, then we don't have the resources to handle all this at once, and that's where that it really is about just is we don't want to overwhelm the system, because just one patient going through this is overwhelming. So if you multiply that times hundreds of thousands of folds, then we're at a place where, having been on the front lines as a physician and working in the emergency room during cold and flu season back in the day, it's so I can't even, I get emotional when especially in New York in March, where I was just I have friends of mine who are ICU doctors, emergency room doctors, going through this, and at that time where PPEs were in short supply, it's like going to battle in a war without any weapons. It's just you don't have any protection, but I'm very glad that Northeast, who which was the epicenter, is on the mend, and I pray that we will all, go back. I know there will be steps underway to kind of pull back on the phases of reopening.
It's just a bitch that we have to just do all of this again and really start all over. But now I don't want you guys to be upset with me, but I have to go.
I'm going.
No, that's okay. We're not upset. You can stay.
No, Joe. Joe, what she's saying is that.
All right, I have.
Joe, what she's saying is that. No.
Okay, so
they're mostly about you. I don't. That's
Hollywood Squares.
No. Let's just.
Now,
she has to go.
Tom Bergeron, am I right?
Has to go. Look. Bergeron was off limits. That was in the contract. No Bergeron talk. All right.
About French people.
What?
I said never speak about French people.
Oh, great. Okay.
Well, vive la différence. And I just have to say, thank you for your
part
time.
2 will be next week, right?
No. This is it, Joel. This is Joe. We have imposed upon her goodwill enough right now. We were late. We were late to the call, and I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, of our heart, being a part of this. It's an honor. You are our hero, and just to spend this time, we're just so grateful to you. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to hang out with y'all. I really do appreciate it. It was fun.
Thank you.
You are the cool.
Thank you.
Stay safe and healthy.
I will. Y'all too. You stay well. Kiss your family.
You're one of the good guys.
Thank you, kiddo.
Bye.
Bye. Whoopi Goldberg.
Wow.
I'm still waving.
Wow.
She's great.
That just happened, and really, I couldn't be more grateful because, we got the times mixed up, and she's
so cool.
She stayed on. It's usually usually the host arrives on set before the guest, and so it's incredibly surreal to come racing down to my office and Whoopi Goldberg's right there just waiting. It's just
that doesn't happen every day.
It doesn't happen every day, and for her
she's
so patient,
so great. Kind. She's so funny. She's obviously is a legend, and I think people forget what she accomplished for the first 3 decades of her career. It is so it's astonishing what she's pulled off, and what she talk about, like taking your talent and running and just making your mark. She's an icon. Just to be in general, just to be so proactive from the very beginning, and that informs her drive, of the rest of her life and her career. And it's just a reminder for me just to be present.
Yeah.
That must be a big reminder for you.
Yeah, because truth be told, my mind's never in the present. I'm always thinking about the future and dwelling on the past.
Me too. Oh, yeah. Life. I'm able to insult myself.
Not even listening to you right now. I'm thinking what I got to do the rest of the day, and then I dwell on the past.
You should put out a self-help book.
Yeah, it's called Don't Do What I Do, Dweller. You know,
it should be like nothing. It should be like regret. And
like regret. I've had a lot.
Over. Regrets and it's over. That's it. That'll be mine. She is just. She's so cool, and I didn't even get to talk to her. I mean, there was 1,000 other things I wanted her to talk to her.
Trust me, we both had a lot more to talk about, but this was
really cool.
It was really great, and wow!
Oh, hey, we got a live show coming up on Friday, don't we?
We have a live show on Friday that we can't wait to do. We had so much fun.
Hey Ken, do you know what time the live show starts?
The live show will be at the same time as the Whoopi Goldberg interview, and I guarantee you, in no way can that go wrong. So
never screw it. 8 Eastern, 5
Eastern, 5 Pacific, Friday, July 3rd. We honestly just had so much fun doing this, and the fans were so great. And Joel, by the way, was so. I mean, he is the best with the meet and greets. I
have to talk.
You are the best with the meet and greets. Like I had finished my meet.
I just want people to like me.
Early, I didn't have as many fans as Joel, so I enjoyed a 3-course meal. I went into the kitchen and then made a couple of phone calls. And then I came back, and Joel was still on the phone, and it was beautiful to watch. So,
well, that's because I just kept extending the time, because it was like 2 or 3 minutes you get with the people. But I was like, I am going to keep this going. And they even told me one of my calls was 10 minutes long. I was like, the guy was really smart. And so that was. Yeah.
And the website is omgvip.com/Ken and Joel, and you can get for tickets and information. And it's again just a lot of fun. And we really just did it spur of the moment, because people are asking right now, is this a regular thing? Is this, why are we doing it so quickly? Honestly, taking a cue from Whoopi, we're going with the flow. We're just having fun, and and really, we just want to, with this podcast, inform all our choices with just kind of going with the flow right now and having a good time. And so we can't wait. We know it's going to be a good time on Friday. And thank you again for listening to this. And thank you again to Whoopi Goldberg. And we're supposed to do like a 1-minute outro, and now it has become 5 minutes.
It has become its own podcast. Welcome to the Darkest Timeline podcast outro.
Yeah. It should be a separate podcast, just the outro that we're doing right now.
It's the cheese course.
Right. Is this like the Talking Dead, like right at the after show about talking about the outro?
Right.
And then will we have an outro about the outro after that? So.
Yes, it's called the Talked. The Dead have talked. Please let them be dead. Please let them stay dead.
All right. Thank you guys very much. All right. Cue the music.